Tuperas y tuperas, today on Dupe by the River, we got a jam-packed episode with a lot of soccer to talk about. We're talking Inter Miami match. We're talking Alianza leg 1 match. We're looking ahead at Chicago Fire. We're looking ahead at leg 2. Ladies and gentlemen, you do not want to go anywhere. You do not want to miss this episode of Dupe by the River. Let's get it started, guys.
Dupe by the River
doesn't do anything well. There is not one.
I'm sorry. There was no creativity.
As a Union fan, I take that all day.
Another DP. We need to go get Mario Balotelli. And that is right. Welcome, everyone, to Dupe by the River, the show where we follow everything Philadelphia Union. And, of course, we are brought to you by Philly Sports Network. Before we dive into today's episode of Dupe by the River, real quick, want to welcome everybody. Thank you so much for tuning on in. Whether you're coming from El Parcero's Philly YouTube channel, or if you're watching live on Twitter, or if you're listening on Dupe by the River podcast, thank you so much. Make sure you guys hit the like button, subscribe on YouTube. Make sure you guys follow here on Twitter, and make sure you guys are subscribed wherever you stream podcasts under Dupe by the River podcast. And, of course, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you today to my expert in duping, Justin Alejandro BARKDOYA Fan Club Friedberg. Well, Justin, how you feeling, bro?
Tired, you know. It's been a busy week with everything going on, and you know, the grind never stops when it comes to this crazy soccer world, and you know, as much as I complain, I don't think I would have it any other way.
I completely agree, and you got more on your plate this season, but yeah, it's all worth the ride, man. It's all worth the bumps and the bruises, the tiredness, all of it, man. It's all 110% worth it there, man. But you know, Justin, I figured, you know, let's get right into it because we do got a lot to talk about here, Justin. Right? So, 2 matches that we haven't been able to discuss. One bad performance, one performance maybe left desired more. But at the end of the day, we're talking about Inter Miami. We'll start off with the Inter Miami loss, the 2-0 loss on Saturday night. Look, the Union did not play well for 90 minutes. You had 2 absolutely ridiculous goals by Coco Jean and by Robert Taylor. You saw pretty much the same starting 11 from match day 1 here in this match here. So let's just talk about what was your biggest takeaways, man? Should Union fans after the second match, were they right to panic at that or freak out at that loss?
No, you know, I think the farther up removed from that game, I've looked back. The Union didn't have a horrible performance. They didn't have their best. Let's be honest. You know, I think there was left a lot to be desired, but you're talking about 2 wonder goals. The second one being ridiculous. Hats off to Robin Taylor. You know, that was just filth of the highest order. There's nothing you can do about that either goal, to be honest. I think outside of those plays, the Union had some chances. Like, I think they definitely left a lot to be desired. Miami played well, but I definitely think that game was the Union's to at least draw. So it did feel like they left a lot on the table in terms of what could have been. But I always say, whenever they go down to Florida, no matter what season and what time of year, it's just ridiculous traveling down to Florida for these away games. You know, it happens. Like, it's the second game of the season in, oh no, you're 1 win and 1 loss, and like I think people are already gonna throw in the towel considering how many games you're gonna play this season. Like, it's gonna be a long season for those people, and yes, it wasn't the best, but I think considering, again, it's only 2 games in, and you, especially this month alone, you have a lot of games. I'm not exactly worried about an average road performance.
I think after that match, I thought to myself, okay, priority CCL. No one got hurt. And you lost off of 2 ridiculous goals. I mean, how often do you lose by 2 cracking goals like that? Like, that's just unheard of. That, and you know what else, Justin? You don't lose like that in the playoffs. So that's why, like, it's the second match of the season. I'm not going to freak out over that. Not I don't want to get too far ahead of CCL because I want to talk about Miami a little bit here, but you know the only real criticism I had where I really felt like El Brujo probably was one of those players that could have had more to desire. You know me, I love me some El Brujo. The second goal, the Robert Taylor one, what I saw, I mean, I'm sure you saw some as well, Justin, but I saw lack of, well, not the best communication with Ali and El Brujo, with Robert Taylor there. I mean, that was just a great finish. I mean, to control that with your chest and then to just volley like that, I thought that was really, really impressive. The first one, I mean, look, Coco Jean found a hole. He knocked it in. Perfect shot. And you credit to him. Andre, and that's one of those plays. And Andre, maybe like 8 out of 10 times he's saving that shot. And Coco Jean just got the best of him. So it's Miami in March, and you got CCL right ahead of you. So you're just gonna chalk it up to that. And of course, we'll talk about the performance that came after that. So as we move forward here, so after that loss, Justin, then we head to Alianza, right? So now we head into CCL. The first thing I'm going to ask you here, because obviously the number one thing that we all are going to talk about is the rotation, right? 8 different starters in this rotation. The biggest ones was Chris Donovan and Quinn Sullivan up top there. For you, would you have done that rotation against Miami, or would you have done what Jim did on Tuesday?
I think Jim made the right call rotating for Alianza. I think at this point, like especially considering it's back-to-back road games, and I think you still want to have a decent standing in the league at this point. Like you have 2 league games, then CCL, then league game, then CCL, and back to league game. So you're kind of juggling a period where, I mean, if you advance in CCL, the next round is next month, but so you have a little bit of time to kind of focus on the league. I think you're going to have those moments where, especially in a game like this, I think if it was Atlas or Tigres or a different opponent, maybe you don't rotate as much. But I think Jim 100% made the right call rotating for this game, because I think if you had done that for the league game, you would see a lot more questions of what is Jim doing.
I agree with you. And, Jim talked about this in 21. These legs, you don't treat as 2 matches. It's 1 match of 180 minutes. And so that's kind of how he took it in 2021. And I'm sure he's bringing it here in 23. And, I wasn't mad at the rotation at all, because this is why we went out and got Damian Lowe, Andres Pereira, and Joaquin Torres, and all of them did start here. Of course, the one that everyone is questioning was Chris Donovan. And so what I want to ask you, Justin, is do you think we are well suited with Chris Donovan being like our fourth forward there? How do you feel about Chris Donovan in the depth going forward?
So when I saw the starting lineup and I saw a front 3 of Torres, Donovan, Sullivan, I was really intrigued. And I think the ability that Joaquin Torres has, we know what Quinn can muster up. Chris Donovan is definitely the wild card out of the 3. And going into this game, I was like, okay, you know what? Yeah, let's see what he's got, and let's how it work. And as the first half went on, and I mean, he had some dynamite chances.
Dude, you're not
like
even
lying. The 2 that stand out are the open header. Like, I mean, open. I mean, that was some of the worst marking I've ever seen. And Chris Donovan, with time and space, is wide open and flashes it over the bar. And the other one being let's be honest, I think he should have gotten a yellow for simulation, because he rounds the keeper.
Yeah. Yeah.
and tries to draw the contact. And if you stay on your feet, you're dribbling that in on net and blasting it home. That's at least 1-0.
That was his best opportunity, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think between the two, I was kind of disappointed that Quinn got subbed off first. I thought Quinn had a phenomenal game. I thought he was definitely the more dangerous of the two. And I think if those chances fall to Quinn, at least one of those is in the back of the net. And so I'm not worried about the striker depth because now I think it creates an interesting, scenario for Jim of maybe do you throw Quinn on in those moments instead of Chris? And I think if you're Chris Donovan, you start to look, I'm starting to, get overlooked, surpassed in the depth chart. And I think if you've seen the way that, competition has bred the best in this locker room over the last few years with Jim, you definitely look at this as a great learning opportunity, great teaching moment for Chris Donovan. And I genuinely hope it's the start of pushing, something and laying a bigger fire under him because, like, I can tell there's the talent there. It just was not really clicking on Tuesday.
Absolutely, man. Real quick, want to give a shout out to one of our new PSN members, Justin. We got Jimmy King in the building. What's up, Jimmy? LAFC rolling out their starting 11 tonight in their CCL matchup. Will be interesting to see how they will fare against New England this upcoming weekend. Good, interesting stuff there. Did you watch any of the Atlas last night, Justin?
What, the 8:00 game
with Olympia?
It's funny. I think I watched at least most of it. But last night I was getting so tired.
I feel you, man.
I started falling asleep towards the end of it. And by the time I looked, I was like, the game was over. I'm like, I wasn't even going to bother staying up for the Vancouver game. So I was like, you know what? Whatever. But the moments I did catch, and I caught for the first half, and then, I mean, like I said, like the end of the game, it was like so, but like that game had some solid fireworks, and CCL so far, I mean, you're talking about some interesting results. Orlando went to Tigres, and through Pedro Gallese, El Pulpo pulls, uses those tentacles and pulls together literally the only reason that Orlando survives that unscathed. I think for me, the biggest, the most wild result, and depending on how stuff shakes out this week, Austin getting walloped.
They got CONCACAF, Justin. Straight
3-0 in Haiti. Unfortunately, despite the terrible result, Austin might still advance.
I heard about this.
There's some early reports that due to some bureaucratic nonsense, the players from the Haitian club may not. It's funny to tell, they may only have, like, including staff, like 12 people, and it would be unfortunate. I know New England
visa. Is that what it is? They didn't have proper visas.
I mean, that's usually whenever it comes to teams in terms of players not being able to enter, it's usually some kind of visa. I mean, because it's going to be a temporary visa for them just to even enter the country.
I feel like this is World Baseball Classic now.
Yeah, I feel like that's. I mean, it's again. I still think it's crazy.
Yeah,
this is even still an issue, but you know what? Like, if Austin gets by, I see something where their fans are all like, all right, on to the next round. Or like, you got your ass kicked the first leg.
I would not be proud of that at all.
Oh, I would be just, and they face better talent in the second round. They're gonna get their ass kicked.
Yeah, Liga Mekki side. I don't know what their bracket is, but I mean, I'm just saying, like, that would be definitely hilarious to see. Yeah, I mean, CCL, this is what it's all about. But getting back to our match, I don't want to kill Chris Donovan because just I do see some value. Like the reason why I feel like we have kept Chris is because Chris, number one, has done his due diligence. Man, he's worked his ass off to get to where he's at. You can't take that away from him. But he kind of fits the Corey Burke mold, where he's a big body guy. He's good on the press. He works his ass off for however long he is. But it was just like those finishing. And I haven't seen enough of him. We've seen him like in a handful of matches that he's been in. This is his first start. So it is just a little bit different. And obviously he subs in last year because of Corey Burke getting hurt. So that was absolutely crazy. You think the mask had anything to do with his play at all? Obviously, maybe like on the header, maybe, but like
I kept making the
it's like Joel Embiid out there.
I was making the again this shows my my age a bit. I was making the Rip Hamilton jokes, and
are we old because of that? Are we old because of that, Justin?
Oh, listen, 100%. We polled most of our viewing audience. How many of them would understand that reference? Rip Hamilton,
oh, dude, that sucks.
Speed, Ben Wallace, Larry Brown. God, yeah, we are dating ourselves on that one. But I think, listen, I'm going to give Chris the benefit of the doubt, especially because, I talked about it a ton on Tuesday.
Say it, man.
That field was bad.
Garbage.
Like, I've played on fields that's quality, even better. Like, and I kept joking. We were watching it at Zed's, and I kept saying, "Oh, we're playing the old British Route 1." It up to the front, and it was working. But that was essentially the strategy. Was you had Damian Lowe, Jack Elliott, or Kai just blasting it up, and having Torres or Donovan. Donovan, if he was getting it, was trying to hold it down. If it was Torres or Sullivan, they were chasing it down and trying to play it through. And the Union created some amazing chances through that. But yeah, it just felt like it was just Jim was just basically trying to tell them, hey, because you could not dribble that ball for 15, 20 yards. Forget about it. That ball was going to start bouncing up. It was going to stick. You were not getting anything. That playing that ugly Route 1 soccer was working. It was ugly. It is not something that you want to sustain. And I think on a better playing surface, even 2 years ago when the Union went down to Central, and pulled out a tough result.
Oh, Saprissa.
Yeah, even that field of Saprissa was better than what they were playing with here, and that didn't even factor in the fact that we had adorable animals running on the field. And I will say, so I love the fun facts about that is that dog owners live near the stadium and are passionate supporters of the club.
Dude, we got the whole story, the whole background story.
Oh yeah,
do we have a name?
I did not know a specific name, but Alejandro BARKDOYA was one of my favorites. The ball that apparently people thought they were still playing with the ball that the dog bit. No, the ball was kicked out. The cameras didn't exactly cut to that. But listen, we were watching it at Zed's. We were cheering for the dog, and as soon as the security guard picked it up, we were all going, "Boo! Boo!" He was just trying to play, and it was. Listen, CONCACAF wouldn't be CONCACAF without animal pitch invasions.
I'm glad everyone enjoyed my tweet. So it was around the 40-some minute. I noticed in this on my peripherals. I'm notice there's something moving in the stands, and obviously that was weird as well. We'll talk about that. So obviously where you see the camera, that side of the pitch, it's all the fans we saw. So both goal ends, you didn't see any fans. So there's dogs strolling through. So I'm like, dude, what is going on? This is so CONCACAF. So I videotaped it, put it on Twitter. Everyone had a chuckle. And then the dog runs on the damn pitch in the 67th minute. And that is by far. So you had one of the biggest upsets, right, with Austin FC. But the story of leg one was the damn dog, Justin. Everybody and their moms was talking about this dog from Canada all the way to Panama. That's all we were talking about, and it was a great story, man.
when it comes to sports, adorable pitch invasions, and listen, you could tell that dog. That like the players were like the players were trying their hardest not to giggle, and like like the dog was just like going on the ball like, hey, anyone want to play with me? Anyone want to play with me? Like
it was awesome. It was a cute dog, Justin.
And even as the dog was being carried off, you could tell it was like just like I got all this attention, the tail's wagging, and I'm like, okay, that's that's fucking adorable. Like you can't get mad at an adorable dog like that.
Official CONCACAF dog 2023. You already know.
And that was the thing was people were already like oh, like is that a dog, a stray dog? Is that okay? And like within like it was like people were like the next day were like tweeting the team like what is it? What story? And they were like, okay, we got an update. The dog, the owners live in the stadium, and that was the whole thing. Was like the team was like, don't worry, he's in a well-loved household. He like they were just like everyone was just like, okay, good. Like that was the biggest story in Union Twitter for at least a day was whether or not this dog was being well taken care of. And that's how soccer fans have their priorities when it's like, who gives a shit about the result? What about the dog?
I'm going to do, Justin. I'm going to take Lilo to Subaru Park next Tuesday and let Lilo lose. Now, Lilo, he might injured some of those Alianza players, but it was definitely a great story. But real quick, Justin, getting back to the pitch, because one of the arguments I did hear, obviously that's not conducive for playing, and obviously we're trying to grow this tournament, right? We're trying to make this the biggest deal since the other Champions League. These pitches don't really bring this tournament to good light. Should there be some type of regulation by CONCACAF when it comes to pitches, in your opinion?
I think that's a tough. You're starting to get into some like subjective territory. I think because like again we talked about with Saprissa that that was a good pitch, and like again it depends where you are and in CONCACAF, you can have a variety of pitches for a variety of reasons. Listen, it's a regulation pitch, like unlike with NYCFC, it's a soccer pitch. Like I think that should be at least the determining factor. I think quality of pitch. Some teams, while it might be great that they qualify, they may not have the infrastructure. They may not have the ability. I think that's something that's the nature of the beast. Like, I mean, you have that in European and UEFA and Champions League and Europa League where you have some ugly ass grass pitches. And I know people would say, oh, well, what about turf? And well, in Scandinavia, like where they play during the winter, sometimes turf is necessary. But in like El Salvador or Costa Rica, is that really conducive for one? The installation cost may not be something they can afford, or they may not want to. And in warm weather, turf is the worst. Like, I feel like there's no perfect solution for this.
Yeah.
And while it was ugly, while it may not have been pretty soccer to watch, I think that's kind of what you can appreciate. And I think it makes for some interesting games. And I think especially when, they come on Tuesday, I think it makes for much more interesting, soccer of a kind of contrasting games, contrasting styles. Like essentially it's two halves of a very, very long game, as Jim put it.
Yeah, pretty much, man. So all I got from that was Justin saying the Catalan is much better than Yankee Stadium. So that's what I got from Justin there.
I mean, essentially.
So yeah, it's obviously really tough, Justin, because like you said, even though Alianza is one of the biggest clubs in Salvador, it's tough for them to put together a club or a squad that's good enough for Champions League, right? and then also good enough for the league. And you need training, you need the best managers. Eduardo Lara is a pretty, he's a pretty decorated manager in his own right in Colombia and Salvador as well. So that costs money. Getting the players they have costs money. So it just doesn't go around into the pitch. I mean, their stadium's pretty old too. Like,
I was gonna say it definitely looked a bit like not crumbling, but it was weathered. I mean, you talked about squad. Their bench was 6 deep. Like the Union have double that.
Yeah,
and and half of it was made up of players who probably make. I mean, it's the case like when you talk about MLS compared to Liga MX, it's players who probably make more money than these players doing it in most seasons.
You know what's funny now, Justin? I don't want to talk about the economics and kind of the crimes of soccer when it comes to our youth, but like I remember like visiting Central American countries when I was a kid and seeing the love of soccer, and for a lot of those countries, soccer is huge, but they can't develop the big times. I think there is talent down there. I mean, you've seen these Central American teams; they make the World Cups, and sometimes they give teams something not all that they can handle. But the point is that they don't have infrastructures to put into development, to put into world-class facilities, kind of like the Philadelphia Union have. You see what they're able to do and how these kids are able to fully develop. So it is definitely tough. I think the pitch thing, you kind of have to leave it as it is. And like you said, Justin, it brings entertainment. It brings a different little something. Obviously, the Euro snob who's used to Anfield, and he looks at the Catalan in Salvador, and he's like, what the hell is that? Well, I mean, it's made for some good, entertaining soccer. So I think, unfortunately, you just kind of have to deal with what it was. But to that point, another question a lot of people did have as well, Justin, was Urre. Where was Urre? Why did he not come off the pitch? Why didn't they put Urre in for Chris Donovan? And Tim brought it up perfectly in the group chat. On a pitch like that, why would you risk injury and bring Michael Urre into the match? So I thought that was the right move, and I'm sure we'll see him on Tuesday, and I'm sure Urre is gonna do his thing in Subaru Park against Alianza.
No, and that was the thing. I said it to a bunch of people. I'm like, they're like, oh, why don't they bring Uwa? And I'm like, why would you bring him on this pitch? That I was thankful that no one got hurt. Like, I mean, listen,
exactly.
There were a number of patchy areas. Quite like I thought there were some where it was like craters. Some looked like it was spray painted over for green. like legitimately, I was just like, listen, especially when they subbed, when they made that, Gazdi Carranza song. I'm like, just don't get hurt. Like we have Saturday, we have next week.
Stay healthy, stay in one piece. You know what's funny too, Justin? Like we're talking about the pitch. It's bad when Gazdag, his first long pass, he does a cross. And the crosses in and the ball just sails over the net. And then he looks right down on the pitch. He's like, holy crap, this is real.
Someone looked at me and was like, is that the corner? I'm like, no. He just fucked that up.
That's how you know it was just an absolute long night. You know what, Justin, though? We had a really good positive. I thought Bueno looked very, very much comfortable in that spot. And, dude, that position is heading in the right direction. I thought his passes were very crisp. He got into a little bit with the captain of Alianza. So you like to see a little bit of that push and that back and forth. But to me, I was very, very impressed by what Jesus Bueno did. And, dude, we talk about all the time. That position is pretty deep that we have here at that 6.
Yeah, Jesus Bueno definitely had a great game. I was pretty impressed. I thought he stepped to the ball well. He was mostly in control, and to a point, he definitely gives you more reason to rotate Brujo out at times.
Yeah, and you know what too is that you don't like Jim's first option to substitute for the 6 was always Leon. Or I'm sorry, it was always Leon Falk. If Brujo couldn't play, Leon at the 6, Jack at the left. But now you have the option of keeping Leon at the left. Listen, Leon's getting more and more comfortable. So far, I've liked what I've seen. Obviously, he only played a couple minutes on Tuesday, but he did play well on last Saturday, and on the first match of the year as well. So if we can keep Leon Flock at the left shuttle midfielder, obviously Jack McGlynn, he's there for some depth, right? When you bring him in here, it's a different change of pace as he's got the vision. He's able to pass the ball from wherever on the pitch. So obviously, like, you do like having him as a rotational guy. But with Jesus, you have, I think, to me, Justin, a clear second option as a number 6, and then you can rotate Leon and Jack. Obviously, Jim is going to be rotating quite often. Now we got Leagues Cup. Obviously, we saw today, emails got sent out, season ticket holders. I'm sure Justin got his as well. Leagues Cup just got announced, dates, times, all that good stuff. So I think you're gonna see now 1A, 1B all through the pitch, every single position, not guys just playing different positions.
And I think the biggest thing too, and this was another, why did you sub him on? I thought Andres Pereira had a great game.
Dude,
I don't know why Ali was subbed on that late. That was another one of those, dear God, don't let him get hurt. Like, there's the reason that Pereira's the reason we can give Ali some rest. And I legitimately thought, you talk about Jesus Bueno having an amazing game and easily deputizing, listen, I think Bueno, they've eased him in. I thought there was just kind of all this hype. It was like initially, and while the hype kind of went away, the Union were like, hey, you know what? Last season, they gave him plenty of time with U2. He was making the bench consistently. I think that was kind of the start of it. I think this season, with all the competitions they're in, is going to play rotation. And Jesus Bueno and Andres Pereira. I mean, you brought him in. Pereira normally plays as a 6, but with the system you have, he's your best and most likely Ali Bedoya replacement. I think this is kind of what you look at and go, okay, we have, that 1A, 1B. We can rotate players in and out and not have to worry about a drop in quality, because I thought, that roster, even against an MLS side, would still be very competitive.
Yeah, 100%, man.
I think it's something that you look at, and for the first time in a while, you can look at this team and go, listen, it's not perfect, but the depth is there. And given all these competitions and given how long the season is, you're going to have those moments where it's like, hey, you know what? This is a game where we can make a wholesale change and still be very competitive.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. It's the depth. The depth is for real this year. I'm going to go out a little bit on a limb, just a little one. I'm going to say Andres Pereira gets 3 goals this year in all competitions.
I could absolutely see that. I think he crashes the box in that
exactly
in that very Ali manner, and I think that's why he was brought in as the most likely Ali replacement, because you saw him. I mean, Andres was crashing every time, and I think on a normal surface, a lot of those chances are falling to him, and I think he's creating a chance. And the nice thing was, him and Jesus Bueno were linking up well, and both of them were spraying the passes out wide, and it was giving Nate and giving Kai plenty of opportunities to cross the ball in. And I think that's exactly, the Union are at their best when their shuttlers are connecting with their outside backs and making the defense stretch. And again, in a normal play like that, Andres is running right back to the top of the box and making that late run, and that's exactly the type of plays that result in those kind of goals that Ali feasted on last year. And I think between the two of them, I think that you're getting that similar type of player, and that's exactly what you need if the Union are going to go far in a number of competitions.
It's about willingness. One thing Leon, had, he wasn't per se in the beginning so willing to be in the attack, but you've seen as time goes on, I feel like he's the most comfortable I've ever seen, like in the attack, especially in the final third. So with Andres Pereira, it's there. It's already there, and he wants to score goals. He wants to be active all throughout the pitch. I'm really excited for him, honestly. And this depth is definitely great. And just in general, I really love the physicality they play with. Even like Nate, right? Mercado is a solid left back. I think he starts for Salvador, like the national team. And dude, he gives him a shove right in the first couple of minutes, right? Nate comes back, he shoves Mercado back. And dude, I was loving that, especially for a young kid like Nate to go up against a veteran in CONCACAF like that. Fuck yeah.
And that's the thing. Like Nate, I've been saying this, since last season. Nate's our best 1v1 defender.
Yeah.
And he might not look like he can do the physical, but he was getting in his face. He was forcing him wide. Nate was giving him the shoulder, and the guy, he was trying to draw fouls, and the ref was having none of it, and he was letting him play for most of the night. I think Leon looked the most comfortable I've seen him in carrying the ball up, and that's something that you don't really see from Leon in a normal MLS setting, because that's not something he's forced to do in a normal game. So the fact that he got more comfortable with dribbling the ball is only going to help the team in the long run, and I think that'll be something that could very well carry over to this weekend.
Absolutely. So before we get into Saturday's match, we have a special announcement coming soon, guys. But we're gonna get you guys covered for Tuesday night. But what I want to know from Justin, number one, Justin, what do you think? Considering now, don't let people know what Chicago's lineup will be, but considering Chicago's lineup, what do you think Jim will roll with on Tuesday? What do you think will happen on Tuesday?
I think you're gonna have a normal lineup on Tuesday.
Okay.
I think it's home. You're gonna want to make a statement. You need to win. I mean, that's sure simple of it. You need to get the goals, and I think again at home and I keep saying the quality of the field's better on a normal field. The Union are finishing most of those chances, and they had most of the possession. I know that's not something Union fans hear all that often, even towards the end of last season when we started possessing the ball more. The Union are going to have the lion's share of possession. I mean, I think you're going to be talking at least 60 to 70% possession. Mm-hmm. You're going to be seeing a lot of passes, a lot of shots. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a normal lineup on Tuesday.
Okay. All right. I'm anticipating the soup to be rocking. Justin, it's Champions League. We're back at it. And you know what, too, Justin? I love these matchups because we're going to get a lot of Salvadorians in there. And you know what I always tell you, Justin? That's when we win them over. You could still be Alianza fans, but we still got our Philadelphia Union, too, Justin. So let's get into Saturday's match, brother. So going up against your favorite squad, the Chicago Fire here, man. I'll say this, Justin. So when we face off against the Fire, typically, especially these days, you think it's an easy dub, but it's not always the case, especially over the past couple of years with Chicago. They sneak up on us. Remember last time we faced off against them in Chicago, Chris Mueller puts Kai Wagner on skates and he gets a nice goal. Good kudos to you. But obviously, look, let's be honest, Justin. Do we know what Chicago's direction really is? They sell off 2 players this past off season, make big bank. They got beautiful kids this year, but it's like you're pulling out Kai Kamara. Like what are we doing exactly? So I mean, like, dude, what is the Chicago team this year?
Yeah, I genuinely don't know. I wrote about it, the preview article. There was nothing that could indicate to me that this season is going to be any different than last season. They had a 1-1 draw week 1 against an NYCFC team that right now no one knows what the hell is going on with them. I mean, NYCFC is playing Talas Magno at the 9 when he's a winger, and they don't know who their striker is, and they sold their only other striker really to Seattle for basically pennies on the dollar, which is still amazing. But like Chicago, yeah, listen, Gaga Slanina leaving wasn't going to be as big of a deal. Like it happens, goalie. But John Duran, I mean, a young and up and coming, teenage, Colombian attacking talent. Dude could ball. I mean, he was second half of the season was genuinely starting to catch fire. no pun intended.
I see what you
Like he was doing well. And then Aston Villa comes and offers like $17 million, which if you're the Chicago Fire, you're not going to say no to a club record
Right.
transfer. Like I can understand why they sold him, but then you don't really replace. You have the same questions or more as of last year. You bring in Kai Kamara, who, don't get me wrong, I love Kai. He's a journeyman. He's been around the league at this point. It feels like there's more teams that he has played for than hasn't played for at this point. But like a 38-year-old striker on top of a very streaky, late 20s Polish striker.
You put some respect on Casper's name. Union legend.
And a early 30s Swiss player who, while is still very relevant to his national team, is very injury prone at this
Were
point.
they in the World Cup, Justin?
They were. He was.
They were. Wow.
And like Chris Mueller is
that dude.
Like when he shows up, yeah, he can be on his game, but like the Union playing at home against Chicago has really never been much of an issue, of late. Yeah, and of course their one goal has come from former Union player Fabian Herbers, who is still there. Like I'm genuinely amazed he's still there, and I love Fabian. But I look at that attack and I go, where are the goals coming from? Like, I genuinely don't know. And I think you look at this, and if you're Union fans, you are salivating and licking your lips at the potential for the Union to put up another multi-goal spot.
Okay. But again, letdown is always a factor. Ladies and gentlemen, it is always a factor in every single match. With CCL coming up here, obviously, the question is here then, do you roll with a similar lineup that you did Tuesday, or do you roll with the lineup that you predominantly ran in MLS?
I think you run with the lineup you normally run with. I think if you were up, and I expect it to be at least 3 goals, if you run up at least 3 goals, then you start rotating and you give those guys rest. But I think you want to make a statement. The league is still going to be of importance, even with this CCL, and you have to balance it. And I think you rested your players Tuesday, so why would you give them a whole week's rest? You're going to start them at the very minimum on Saturday, and then rotate out if you need to. But realistically, your normal lineup is going to start and play at least 60 minutes.
I mean, I think I'm with you, but then like there's a part of me that goes, well, I feel like that lineup too. Well, maybe besides Chris Donovan, but I feel like majority of that lineup Tuesday could beat this Chicago Fire team tomorrow, especially those young kids playing together. They just got something together, so it'll be interesting what Jim decides to do for Saturday. But I think that I actually kind of like this, Justin, because I do feel like there is going to be like that intrigue. Because the past couple seasons, Justin, you and I, or Tim or Zach, we do the lineups, and like it's Andre, it's Kai, it's Glazis, but like now it's like, okay, well, we got this competition coming up. Could we see Joaquin starting? Could we see Andres starting? And I think that intrigue definitely is pretty. It's fun this year, so I'm definitely enjoying that part about the lineups this year. Depth, Justin, we got it this year, man, and it's definitely big. So lineup Saturday: Blake and goal, Wagner, Glazis, Elliott, and Bizo.
Yeah, I think so. I think Chicago is one of those. Chicago's defense in midfield are questionable, and I think having 2 wingers, having those fullbacks that can bomb up and down, I think is one of those where, again, Olivier's defensive game has gotten better, and I think if he needs to get back, he will. But I think after giving him the rest, rightfully so, on Tuesday, I think you roll with him and try to exploit the space in behind that you're going to have.
Real quick, why has Chicago played 1 match? Do they have postponement too?
No, I think there's always it's always weird. There's always with the awkward number of teams. There's because there's 29 right now. There's always going to be one team that doesn't play.
Okay.
And so this was the week where the Chicago Fire didn't play.
Okay. Just curious there. All right, back to the starting lineup. Midfield, Flock left, Martinez 6, Bedoya right, Gazdak the tip.
Yeah, I wouldn't see why you wouldn't. And out of those, I think Ali would be the one who would get subbed off if you're up a few goals, as I expect.
Absolutely, man. And then Carranza and Ure at the 2 forward spots there. Justin, for you, is there anyone else from Chicago besides Shaqiri that people should be keeping an eye out for that you've seen there?
The only player I can think of is, again, going to be Chris Mueller.
Okay.
And I think that's just pure because Torres, I mean, last year was hurt most of the year, so you don't know exactly what you're getting from him. You have some young homegrowns there, but in terms of attacking talent, there's not a lot to speak of. And I think that's just the state of how Chicago is at the moment. Like,
I feel so bad for those fans.
Yeah, and I think
too.
I mean, people forget 2017, the last time they made the playoffs, Nemanja Nikolic was on fire. That team looked pretty dominant. They think they finished like third. Like that's only 6 years ago, and it feels like the Chicago Fire have been a joke for a while now.
And they just complicate. And you know what it is too? It's like the 1.0 teams. I feel like those clubs seem a little bit disconnected from what's just going on in the world of soccer these days. And I kind of lump Chicago in that as well. It's, especially there's so much soccer culture in Chicago that you're just fucking out, man. What are you doing?
Yeah. And especially with the whole stadium thing, like now they're playing at Soldier Field, and now the Bears might not even play Soldier Field anymore. Like
NFL lines. Ugh.
It's just bad. Like you had a decent thing going with Bridgeview,
Right.
and I've been out to Bridgeview. I like it. It's not that far outside the city. Like it's essentially, it's like how Chester is to.
That's what I hear.
It's like maybe 15, 20 minutes tops. Like and it's it's not a bad spot. There's not a lot to do in the area.
Can you tailgate? It's at Soldier Field?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's depending on the day. It can be as our friend Tommy and I dealt with. We
the rain game.
Well, no, that we actually also there was also a fight and either a shooting or stabbing.
Oh my god!
After the game, with some the dudes that ended up getting in the altercation ran past us in the garage. We were walking down to meet up with somebody before heading back to our hotel, and I know that area can be kind of because it's over by the art museum. Like it's not a bad area, but it's still one of those. They had a soccer specific stadium. They had a decent area, and they left for whatever reason.
What was the reason?
I don't know. This weird, mindset with being with people who are, obsessed with being in the city limits or, playing in non-soccer specific stadiums, which I don't understand. Like, soccer specific stadiums are better
more than anything. I would rather you do what Colorado does, but to have NFL lines, it's just a terrible, terrible, terrible look. So get your stuff together, Chicago. But Justin, let's get a score prediction from you, sir. Saturday night under the bright lights. What are we doing here? What are we doing?
As I said, I think the Union are wanting to get a bit of revenge after a disappointing effort against Miami. I think the goal machine will roar again. It's going to be at least 3 goals. I'm feeling. I'm going to say 4-1.
Okay.
I was gonna do a
Wow.
clean sheet, but I think Chicago will get an ugly one.
Casper gets a nice laugh.
No, it'll be his that has actually rolled an own goal. But I think I think the Union should have no issue going through a Chicago defense that I still have a lot of questions on. And if you're the Union, you want to be locked and loaded and ready to go for Tuesday. You're not overlooking Chicago. So I think you want to make a statement, say you are ready for Tuesday.
Absolutely. I would be doing a disservice to Tim Lovinguth, who we love dearly, if I didn't ask if you have recovered yet from the manslaughter that was Liverpool Man U.
I mean, Man U won 4-1 today against Real Betis. So yeah, I think I've
What is this, Europa or Champions?
Europa League round of 16 first leg.
You guys going to win another one?
And don't worry, when Liverpool get their ass kicked again by Real Madrid, I can just be like, and hey, the Man U is going to win a trophy. Liverpool's not going to win any silverware. So,
and then there's Christian Polanco and I. We're just hoping we just stay up.
Yeah, you're just happy to be here.
Oh, we love a good laugh here, guys. And with that being said, that's going to do it for today's edition of Duke by the River. A big thank you to you guys for checking it on out. Make sure you guys hit that like button, subscribe here on El Parcero Phillies YouTube channel for all of your future viewings. Of course, subscribe wherever you stream podcasts. We're available. Make sure you guys look us up under Duke by the River podcast. Next week, again, probably, guys, we're going to do another one episode. Make sure you stay tuned for the special announcement, guys. I'm going to get you guys very well prepared for Tuesday. Let's put it that way. But stay tuned for all that. Ladies and gentlemen, that is Justin Alejandro BARKDOYA, Fan Club Friedberg. Of course, I go by the name of El Parcero Philly, and we're telling you guys to dupe on.